Welcome, everybody. It is Thursday night. It's 8 o'clock. And you know what that means? It's time for another Get Off My Lawn podcast. So tonight's going to be a very, very special night. And I've been looking forward to this since I first found out this was going to be an option to even have our guests on with us tonight. So as we go through here, we'll bring everybody. I know they're kind of on screen in the small thumbnails, but we'll bring everybody out to the main view here in just a second. I do want to put this banner up here real quick and just make sure everybody knows that if you're out there, especially if you're new and you're just joining us for the first time, that we do enjoy those live comments. Normally we're out on Facebook. I can't because I'm in trouble. I can't go live quite yet, but if you're out there on YouTube, we like those live comments. Put those right there in the live comment section, and we could actually bring those on the screen and let everybody know what you said. Of course, they have to be they have to pertain to the conversation or where we are in the conversation, or they need to be questions. If they're questions and we have time to field those, we'll get to those as well. Also, if you are new, please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the share button and help everybody get to this, whether it's live or even on the replay. And then if you need to get a hold of us and it's no longer live, you can always email us at nesandhillsmedia@gmail.com. The NE stands for Nebraska Sandhills. A couple other things that I want to mention here real quick before we say hello to everybody. We are a proud member of the Self-Defense Radio Network, and you can get this podcast along with some really, really great stuff over there on Second Amendment related stuff, freedom related stuff. There's something for everybody over there. So go check that out as well. You can find that at sdrn.us. Let's pull that back off the screen. Let's bring everybody onto the screen. And real quick here, we'll just give everybody a chance to introduce themselves. So first and foremost, directly to the right of me on the screen, we have our fully semi-official co-host with us. Defense Dad's in the house. How are you, sir?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Now, normally I would be chivalrous and introduce the ladies first, but since they are the special guests, we save the best for last.
Yep, I'm just going to say hi, then I'm going to shut up.
All right. See, there are smart men out there in the world. I'm not one of them. I don't claim to be, but that's all right. All right. So we have got some representation here from the DC Project, and I could sit here and try and stumble my way through explaining exactly what that is, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to introduce these ladies and then put one of you on the spot or put the three of you on the spot to figure out whose job it is to introduce us all to the DC Project. So first and foremost, in the top corner of the screen there, we have got Susan Myers, who is the, correct me if I'm wrong, you are the rep for the state of Missouri, correct?
Correct. State Director for Missouri. Great state for gun rights.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. As we were talking before we went live, maybe a tad greater than the one where Defense Dad and I live right now. But we'll get there. It's Nebraska. We always get there. We just get there last most of the time, but we'll get there. So, Susan, thank you very much for joining us, and we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
You bet. All right. Next, we have Mary Forgues, who is coming to us from Connecticut. How are you tonight, Mary?
Hi, so Mary Forgues from Connecticut, state director, and not a great state. Like I probably would prefer to be out in like Nebraska or Missouri, but I'm stuck in Connecticut. And yeah, so about a month ago, I was brought on as the state director here.
Very cool. And you know, I've been tempted to maybe leave my state, but you know what? If there aren't good people that stay and fight, then what good are we, right? How good could we possibly be if we're gonna all tuck tail and run? So good on you and power to you for sticking there and being a thorn in the side of the would-be totalitarians that are in the government there.
Thank you.
All right. And then our last guest is somebody who has been here as a guest in the past, and she is our state director here in Nebraska, along with the Northwest Region Director. We have got Stephanie Schafer. How are you?
Hey, John, I'm good. How are you?
Doing great, thanks.
Good.
All right.
So I just was going to say, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here with Susan and Mary tonight, who are both doing awesome things in their state. So thanks for having us.
Absolutely. I'm trust me, the gratitude is all coming from this end. All right. So I don't know which one of you wants to jump in here, but I would like just well, it doesn't have to be the flyby. It doesn't have to be the elevator pitch, but what is DC Project? How did it start? And what is it grown? What has it grown into today?
All right, I'll take this one, Mary and Susan, because I expect you to do lots of talking on other things. So the DC Project is a group of women for gun rights. We started initially 5 or 6 years ago, just as a small group of women, one woman from each of the different 50 states, traveling to Washington, D.C. to meet with legislators. And since that time, it has grown now into the states, where we're trying to replicate what we're doing on a federal level, in the state level, and really encouraging women as the one of the leading demographics of gun owners to get out there and meet with their legislators and talk about the importance of gun rights, how gun rights are women's rights, we're our own first responders, and just really putting that out there.
And it's picking up momentum all the time here, and keeps growing into something even better than what it started as, I think. So very, very proud to know several of the reps, and am very happy to get to know more of the reps as time goes on. Eventually it would be very cool to have met at least the state director for all 50 states, and have them know who I am. So pretty cool tonight that I get to meet some new faces here. I should say a new face, due to reasons. Only 2 of us have our cameras going, but that's okay because what's important is the message that gets out, more than anything else. So let me start this off. We've got a new video that dropped this week from DC Project. And I don't even know the right thing to say. Is this part of a new, how do I say it, a new campaign to maybe go on the offensive a little bit, the proverbial offensive, not physical? What's the right thing to say?
Yeah, so DC Project is really working hard to be the counter voice and the counter visual to the red shirts of Moms Demand Action. That's one thing we've really been putting a lot of time into the last year, is being that voice. Unfortunately, we don't have a $36 million budget like Moms Demand Action does. And so, we're doing what we can to get that name out there and start promoting that counter voice and counter visual. And this video goes right into that. It's about talking about the truth and not listening and buying into what the red shirts are selling.
Yeah, very, very cool. All right. So I do have that video queued up. So at this point, I think all the notifications are out. We're going to go ahead and play that real quick. Let me work my StreamYard magic here to put that up on the screen. And it is this one. We're going to go, let's see, we'll hit play, we'll go full screen.
You and I are constantly bombarded by misinformation from politicians, celebrities, and media personalities who demonize guns and gun owners. Their accounts are contrary to my experience as a responsible gun owner, a retired police officer, and a professional competitive shooter. I have listened to their lies and I've taken their punches, but I refuse to stay silent any longer because I know a lot of women who have something to say and they won in the game. They're ready to play offense with the truth.
The truth is, we all want the same thing, to protect ourselves our families, and to be safe in our communities. The DC Project is a nationwide grassroots organization made up of women from every demographic. We come from all different walks of life, but we are united in preserving our Second Amendment rights. As we share our experiences, we push back against gun control lies and oppose those who demand our rights be restricted.
As an immigrant from Venezuela, I saw how easy it was for freedom to die. My family and I watched tyranny destroy our home. In Venezuela, the media, celebrities, and politicians repeated the same anti-gun messages until people found it normal and acceptable to give up their freedoms. The reality is, none of it is normal or acceptable. Hungry and helpless, Venezuelans are now unable to protect themselves. Now, as a proud American, I am determined to guard against the same things happening here.
We constantly hear about common sense gun control, like universal background checks, banning assault weapons, ghost guns, high-capacity magazines, and gun show loopholes. Every city that is facing massive crime waves have put these policies into place. Common sense tells me that they don't work. So why do people still believe the idea that those policies save lives? Actual common sense is holding criminals accountable, not letting them out of jail or encouraging them to be more confrontational. Common sense is not stealing the right of the American people to protect themselves. This is the message that America needs to hear.
The DC Project works to reduce firearm accidents by campaigning for education in schools. We counter the false gun control lies by testifying in hearings and meeting our legislators. We equip our friends, our families, and our communities to know the truth. Gun owners are good people.
America is a beacon of freedom. The Second Amendment is a vital piece in ensuring that our kids can have a free country to grow up in. We stand with the lawmakers who support the Constitution, and we provide armor from the attacks by the gun control lobby.
Join the DC Project today. Become a member, donate, or subscribe to our newsletter for updates on how we educate, advocate, and preserve our Second Amendment rights for generations to come.
All right. I love that video. That is so cool. So I want all of you to have a chance to kind of talk about your own story and how you came to join in with DC Project. So we'll just start at the top of the screen here, and Susan, we'll start with you. How did you get involved with DC Project, and how has that journey progressed since then to now?
Right. So in 2019, I attended my first, at the time they were called the Well-Armed Woman Leadership Conference. I had recently joined the leader of my chapter to kind of help out with our group. And so I was attending my first conference, and one of the speakers that came was Diana Muller. And she started sharing what DC Project was doing on, at that time, the national level, and, you know, was filling us in on the idea of taking it to the state level. And as I listened, I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to be a part of that. And so fast forward to 2020, and I had signed up on the website and was waiting to hear what, you know, get let into the group and everything. And I happened to go to church with, at the time, my district representative. And so I was filling her in on it and asking her, you know, I knew nothing about legislation, right? It was the last thing I ever wanted to pay attention to. And so I was like, how do I find out what firearms bills are out there? And so she gave me a couple of names of the guys that were filing the 2A legislation. And so I reached out to one all excited, you know, DC Project, we do this, we do that, we're here to help you. And he invited us to come testify on the Second Amendment Preservation Act coming up in 3 days. So keep in mind, I wasn't part of DC Project yet. I was just an overly anxious person. And so I started scrambling, trying to find someone from the DC Project to come testify, which of course didn't work. And I didn't want to put that out there about DC Project and then not back it up. So I went myself, did my first ever public speaking, my first ever public testimony at a hearing, and how cool that it was on SEPA that ended up passing the next year. COVID put everything to a screeching halt that session. But so that was my introduction. I opened my mouth and created a hole that I could fall in, or I could bridge that gap and just plunge. And I plunged, and I'm so grateful.
Very, very cool. Yeah. There are a lot of people, I'm sure, that are watching and listening to this who are in that same boat. They've never done public speaking. And I find that when it comes to any kind of advocacy, sometimes that is one of the biggest fears that people have, is getting out in front of people and speaking up, and just the fear of messing something up or something like that. How hard was that for you to get out there and do that?
It's really funny that you asked that, because we obviously didn't plan this, but on the DC Project website under stories, I actually wrote about that experience. I was sitting in a room. I get there early, and I'm sitting on one side of the room by myself, and in the other side of the room was about a dozen to 15 red shirt ladies. And I'm sitting there going, it's me against them, just little old me, facing them. And as I sat there really nervous about it, wondering how I got myself into this, I had this eureka moment where it's like, they're so bold and unafraid to spout stuff that doesn't hold up, doesn't pass the muster test. Why on earth would I not be bold in speaking truth, common sense, God-given rights? And so at that moment, I wasn't nervous anymore. I was emboldened, and I'm just hungry to do it every chance I get now. And it happened in that split second.
You just gave me chills a little bit just telling that. That's awesome.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. No apologies. Absolutely no apologies. That's very cool. If I can accomplish one single thing with having you ladies as guests tonight, it is to show the world that you don't have to be somebody who's already famous. You don't have to be somebody who's has any experience with legislation or public speaking to make a difference. And if we can get one person to do what you did and just make that decision to just jump in and do this, then I'll call it a win. If we can even get one more person out of their shell to do it. Very, very, very cool story. I like that. Stephanie, I'm going to move over to you. How did you first get involved with DC Project, and what has your journey been like since then?
Oh, goodness. I got involved with DC Project, I got to think, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe more than that. I saw something on Facebook about DC Project looking for somebody in the state of Nebraska. And at this point, everything was still being done at a federal level. We hadn't gone down to the states yet. And so I visited with Diana Muller, who's our founder, signed on to go to that first trip and meet with our legislators. And it was amazing to me to be able to go into those meetings, and we can say what we want about Nebraska, constitutional carry not passing, all the wonderful things out here, how far we are behind and things. But to me at the time, I always thought Nebraska was a pretty red state. We would go in and meet with these other legislators who were just completely opposed to Second Amendment anything. They don't want to hear it. They don't have time for us. And so I really learned a lot that first trip and realized how important it was for people to get involved, and just started attending more things with the DC Project group. I went to the Gun Rights Policy Conference for the first time. We went to CPAC. and really just started learning a lot about how to be involved. That's one of the big pieces of the DC project is just encouraging people like Susan, like you're going to hear from Mary, to get out there to share their stories, encouraging other people. And it's just it has that trickle down effect. We talked about early on, I started as the Nebraska representative going to Washington, D.C., and now I'm the Nebraska State Director. I'm the regional director for the Northwest region. I sit on the advisory board. So I've really become invested in that and invested in promoting our gun rights, Second Amendment rights, and really seeing that through. So it's been a big change. Good change.
But a good change. Awesome. All right, Mary, we're going to move over to you. I don't know much about your story. Like most of America, I know what I know from the last video that DC Project produced. So rather than me goof everything up again, and I considered playing that video tonight too, but just in the interest of, I've got you here live and in person, well, almost in person. I'm not going to play that video. I am going to encourage everybody who's watching and listening to go to the DC Project website or social media pages or YouTube channel and find the video that just says "Gun Control Equals Tragedy." That's the title of it. So Mary, your experience is going to be unique on this panel, and we haven't talked ahead of this. I don't know if there's things that I'm not supposed to ask. So this is all real and raw, everybody that's watching. But I'm going to let you tell your story instead of me try to preface any of it.
Do you want me to probably not go into detail too much about it, right? Because it's a long story. It's probably like a 10-minute story. But for the gist of it, and I'll say
you tell as
November,
much of it as you want to.
Okay. November of 2019, somebody broke into my home. I was attacked in my home. I was strangled. I was hit over and over again. And I had to fight for my life to get my firearm. And if I didn't have my gun, I wouldn't be sitting here with you right now. And my daughter would actually also not be alive. I'm assuming if she, when she came home that night from the movies, then she most likely would have been that next victim. So, that was in, again, November of 2019. And in obviously 2020, early 2020, we had COVID hit, and I had been laid off from work for about 2 months and was getting really bored. And my boyfriend has a firearm training company. And I was like, hey, I'm going to take over your company because I need to do something. Like, I'm really bored. And I'm used to like managing businesses. And I was like, I'm going to manage your business. So I ended up scaling his firearm training company. And one of the things that we focused on was women's training courses. And about almost a year after, fast forward into like 2021, I had been more so like in the background of all the courses where I'd like do the content. I do videos and photos for the classes while he taught the classes. And then one of the classes, he had to leave the range to go grab a firearm. And so I stayed on the range talking to the women there. And there was a few women that were really nervous about shooting. And I noticed that they both had stories, but it's not something that they necessarily wanted to talk to in that moment. So just, I don't know, I just kind of like dove in and shared my story. And that was my first time ever talking about it on a public platform, which was, again, is a little over a year after that actually happened, where I finally spoke about it to complete strangers. And then I realized that story helped these two women have the confidence to follow through with the class that night. So I shared it a few other times, not just where I would walk into a room and start sharing it, but like other classes that we were having where I would notice that women were nervous, I would share the story, and it gave them confidence. So like I said, we ended up building a women community for firearm training, and we do have a Girl and a Gun in Connecticut, but we didn't have something like what we had built. So one which is like DC project, but it's at a state level. And I invited the CCDL president, Holly Sullivan, who is also part of the DC project. I invited her to the class to talk about CCDL. And when she came, she talked about the DC project also, which was my first time hearing about it. And I was like, wow, like these people sound like my type of people. Like I want to know them, but I didn't say that verbally. But it was definitely something it immediately got my interest. And a couple months later, she said, she reached out to me, or DC Project reached out to me and said, we would love to have you down in Gainesville, Florida for our summit. And we would love to meet you and for you to share your story. So that was this past October of 2021. That's when I got to meet everybody, Susan, Stephanie, and the other almost all 50 states. I believe we have somebody. So I ended up meeting a lot of women down there. And I just have completely gotten hooked into it, that like I'm dreaming about it. I'm thinking about like how we could do better within Connecticut, and how to get more women involved. And then about a month and a half ago, I was asked to I was asked to step up as the state director. So that's where I am now. For the past about month and a half, I've been the state director.
Awesome. So. All right. Very cool. So yeah, the more people I talk to of any gender, either gender, we can get into trouble, but that's a discussion for a different night. The more people I talk to who are either new to the firearms world or new to the advocacy side of the firearms world, I should say, the more I find out that everybody's reasons for being pro Second Amendment, pro gun, they're as unique as the people that have the reasons. So you already were exposed to firearms before the night that you were attacked, it sounds like. When were you first exposed to firearms, and what is your, what's your reason for getting into shooting guns in the first place?
So my reason for getting into guns, I ended up getting my permit about, I think it was about like 7 years ago. I ended up getting my permit, and I was just a single mom, and I was like, I need to have a resource to be able to protect myself and my kids in case if something ever happens. So that was my whole purpose. I mean, when I was growing up, my grandfather had a revolver, but it wasn't anything that like, we never shot it out at the range or anything like that. When I was, I'm gonna say my early 20s, when my daughter was 2 years old, I went to go visit my mother out in Kansas, and she had guns. So that was my first time actually shooting guns. Open. So there's like a lot of people shoot in their backyards. I'm sure you guys have that up in Nebraska and Missouri also. So that was my first time actually shooting. And then again, it took me probably like another decade after that before I decided to get a permit. And nothing other than being a single mom and having that resource available is what prompted me.
And I've talked to a lot of ladies that found themselves in that position. The NFOA president here in Nebraska, Trish Harold, same thing, found herself in a position where she knew that she was going to be the only protector of her kids that were small. And yeah, even as a veteran, she wasn't really that into guns until she found out that she better figure something out quick. So I'm fascinated to hear everybody's story. Every time I meet somebody, I want to know their story. I want to know what makes people tick. But I've recently started the journey as a firearm instructor myself. And so the more people I talk to, I always want to know what got people into picking up that firearm for the first time, or at least that defensive firearm for the first time, and what was going on in their mind or in their heart when they decided to make that decision. So Stephanie, I'm going to ask you the same question, and Susan, I'll ask you after Stephanie. So Stephanie, I kind of know a little bit about what you got into what got you into the gun world. Don't worry, talk show host, can't talk. People are used to it when they watch these. What got you into the firearms world? And then what was it that got you into advocating for Second Amendment, if it was it anything besides a DC project?
Yeah. So I really got into firearms, or I started shooting for the first time 12 years ago, 11 years ago now. My boyfriend, who was in law enforcement at the time, took me out to the range, and there were firearms in his home, and basically said, you need to learn how to use these just in case you need to use these. And so took me out to the range. What's really funny, we laugh. We have a video from that day at the range and a photograph from that day at the range that we use in our beginner classes to show people what not to do when they shoot. He laughs and tells everybody we had just started dating, so he didn't really want to correct me on anything, but we use those in classes. So a couple of years after that, didn't really do much with anything. I could use them. I was comfortable with them. But we wanted to go get our concealed handgun permits. So we went together to get our permits. I'm kind of a Google nerd, so I look everything up. There were some things in the class that the instructor said that were just a little bit off to me. And so when we left class that day, passed it, had the certificate, everything else, we went home and I looked up a couple things. I'm Googling, what the instructor said to me. And he was not teaching things right. Wasn't giving right information, and wasn't doing some of the things that the certifying body said that he needed to be doing to be able to teach that class. And so I didn't even get my permit after that. I didn't feel like I had earned it because he didn't do what he was supposed to have done to educate me. And I decided at that point, or we decided, my boyfriend and I both, that we would go get certified to be able to teach classes, because that was the way for us to make sure that people got the correct information, the right education that they needed to carry safely. So we did that in 2015, and it's just kind of snowballed since then. That was the NRA beginner pistol class is all we were certified for. Now we do concealed handgun, we do advanced rifle, shotgun, 3-gun. I shoot 3-gun competitively, and enjoy all of that. So that was kind of my dip into the firearms that just snowballed. And as I got involved with that more, I got involved in A Girl and a Gun, so that the ladies that were coming to me would have some place to continue to go and train. And that's how I met DC Project and got involved with the advocacy. And it really just does all fit together and tie together. It goes hand in hand. It's so important for me to be able to educate not just women, but that's where my passion is. It's so important for me to be able to educate women, but then also speak about why it's important for those women to be able to have firearms, to know how to use them, because it's their right. And, through educating and sharing that with people, I'm advocating for them. And then by testifying and meeting with those legislators, I'm advocating for them. So I think it just all goes hand in hand.
No, I very much agree with all of that. And that's where my passion lies too, not only with women, but with new shooters. I want to bring new shooters into the fold both as an advocate and as an instructor. But the people who, if we generalize, the groups of people who throughout history, or the history of our nation anyway, have been told guns aren't for you. You don't have any business shooting guns or taking care of yourself, protecting yourself, minorities or women, who, you name it. That's my passion too. I completely understand. And I know as a guy, I can't reach everybody that one of you ladies could reach. And I understand that. But it's not some false sense of gosh, you ladies need me to teach you. No, it's not that at all. But if I can empower women locally to be their own first responder, then some of them may one day decide to become instructors themselves. And maybe I can, if I can't foster it firsthand, then I can foster it secondhand, to get more instructors into this part of Nebraska, there aren't that many instructors in Northeast Nebraska. And I see a distinct lack of classes available besides concealed carry. And so in my part of the state, I mean, it's I just decided that it was time to go ahead and get started, and I don't it's a journey. I've got still got to find a place to shoot that's closer than 40 miles away, and I've still got to find a place to have classes that I don't have to rent every single time I do it, but it's growing and it's taken off. So that's all that matters. Susan, I'm going to ask you now, when you first got into shooting guns and what brought you into that world, and then if there was, we pretty well know what got you into advocacy from your previous story. So, but what brought you into being a firearm owner in the first place?
Well, I grew up with guns, but I never touched one. My dad was a gun enthusiast, a hunter, an archer, big into it all. So I never had a fear or a stigma. But sadly, the only thing my dad ever taught me about guns was don't touch them. You know, he probably just wiped them down, and he didn't want little girl fingerprints on them. So sadly, I didn't get taught by my dad to shoot. I would have loved that. But when I started dating my husband over 30 years ago, don't make me do math, but I remember, you know, one time we stopped out in the country somewhere, and he had me shoot tin cans with his revolver, and you know, it's like, okay, that's cool. And then that was it. Then fast forward, after we married and moved out to the country, I made sure, I shot a poke bush with my sawed-off shotgun we bought for me to have when he was out of town, legally sawed off, by the way. And so I knew I could use that if I ever needed it. And then that was it until Missouri got concealed carry. And so I decided I'm not very big and not very tough looking. So I decided that I wanted that. And so he started bringing home pistols from gun shows, you know, because I never even thought that I should go, you know, look for my own gun. Mm-hmm. And anyway, eventually, after getting my permit, if I do something, I want to do it well. And especially with firearms, I knew I was responsible for any and every bullet that I ever sent out of the end of that thing. And so I looked into and ended up joining a chapter of the Well-Armed Woman when it finally started about a year after I got my permit. I never carried in between that time because I just didn't feel ready. And so I joined the Well-Armed Woman so that that would force me to practice and stay on top of things. And I just ate it up. Fast forward a little while I took an advanced pistol defense class, and the first time I faced multiple targets, she was like, okay, at my signal, you're going to go body, body, head, and I did it, and my shots actually went where they were supposed to go, and I was like, you know, can I quit now? And she said, nope, you're going to do it again. I came home from that and hit the computer and found out where I could do that some more, because all along I knew it was so essential to become proficient with a firearm, but no one ever clued me in how stinking fun it was. And so that's why my shooting page is called Worthwhile Fun. And I share my journey. I share my screw ups. I have no ego, but I want women, you know, middle-aged women. You know, my first sport is competitive shooting, and not because I'm in it to win it. You know, I would do it to see how far off the bottom of the results I could get. But it's just too important to not encourage ladies to get out there and do it.
Well, and from what I've been told, you ladies are the fastest growing demographic in the shooting world, of the firearms world. So very, very cool. So real quick before we move on here, there's a few comments and some questions out there in the chat that I want to get to. G Webs is out there, and he says, "Pro tip: girl fingerprints is how you get glitter on your guns. Watch out." So I just thought that I would share that. Anybody who's raised a girl or ever had a girl even visit their home understands that, glitter just is, every little girl has glitter. I think it just falls off of them.
Yeah, he's 100% not wrong. I can tell you that firsthand.
Where was it? Vash Matrix is out there saying these testimonials, for lack of a better word, hit very close to home. So Vash, I don't know your story, but it's nice to know that when you have an experience that in some cases can be quite paralyzing and quite disabling to some people, it's nice to know that it doesn't have to be that way, that there is a way to turn that into, if not something good, then there's a way to turn those emotions into something healthier than fear. So it's nice to hear some of that, some of these stories that aren't all just aren't all, how do I want to say it? Not everything is all rainbows and unicorns out there for everybody. And that's okay. That's life. Life gets messy. Life sometimes gets scary. G-Web's also, as we were talking about, CCDL, that is the Connecticut Citizens Defense League, and you can find them at ccdl.us. You can find DC Project's website at dcproject.info, so I wanted to get those up on the screen as well. And then the video that where Mary tells her story in a little bit more detail, G-Webs did post that link, and I pinned it to the top of the live chat on the YouTube side. So you can go view that video when this, wait till this one's over. Don't leave these ladies talking to nobody. So you can go check that out later. A few things about the video that we did play that G-Webs had said. Favorite part is the production value. This is as well produced as anything Bloomberg could have paid for. The point of view, style, and relevance this message provides was never possible before DC Project. Second favorite part was the message focused on other aspects of gun ownership other than our property or our rights. This message announces a disruption in the debate that is fresh and on point. And third favorite part is what this video will create in its wake: inspiration to act, awareness of real options, and motivation to be part of a welcoming group mean more ladies than ever will be reached. And amen to all three of those. He is dead on with all three of those comments. So, and not just this video, everything that I've seen coming from DC Project with some of these videos that are, if you go to the YouTube channel, there's all kinds of great stuff. It's not all studio production stuff, but that doesn't mean it's any less great to go watch the two little girls. That was such an awesome video to watch. Go check that stuff out later. What else did I miss anything? PNW Woods out there likes the whole thing, but the part about what common sense is in regard to gun laws was his favorite part. So yeah, these fellas out here in the chat are weighing in, and they're all saying kind of the same thing that I am. You ladies are awesome. Also, the Well-Armed Woman is at thewellarmedwoman.com. And G, if you get, I don't know if you did, if I missed it, but G, if you get a chance to put the website up for A Girl and a Gun, it's I'm very, very happy to hear the Well-Armed Woman or A Girl and a Gun brought up in the discussion, because there are things that that you can do, or I shouldn't say things you can do. There are groups that ladies can join that don't require any kind of even activism, although that does seem to be contagious once you're part of the community. But there are places out there where if you're a lady and you're just looking to maybe get into shooting, maybe you've decided that you want to be your own first responder, but you don't know where to start. you don't know anybody. And let's face it, even with women being the fastest growing demographic, it's still an old boys club at this point, right? In a lot of the areas, especially. And so there are some amazing groups out there who will welcome you with open arms, whether you know everything there is to know about guns or you've never even seen one in real life before, let alone fired one. They will welcome you with open arms. So can I have some of you ladies just speak to some of the organizations you belong to, and maybe some of the others that are out there that we haven't mentioned yet?
I'll just jump in real quick. The Well-Armed Woman is the only other one I'm a part of now, but I need to put it out there that at the first of the year, they changed their DBA to Armed Women of America. The new website and with that name hasn't, I think, launched yet, but TWAW will be Armed Women of America.
Awesome.
Just wanted to get that out there.
Sure. Can you tell us real quick just what the Well-Armed Woman is and just how awesome it's been to be a part of for you? Because I know it's been awesome. I don't have to ask that.
Assumptions, how dangerous. Yeah, they're a national organization. I don't know off the top of my head how many chapters there are all around the country, but it's women helping other women learn to shoot, learn to carry, learn to get past fears of firearms. I'm not an instructor. I've had opportunities to, but I just don't feel like that's my thing. I am part of the leadership of our chapter, but I look at myself, I'm like a counselor and a matchmaker. I feel like what I do best is listen to the ladies. You know, sometimes they just need to talk through their anxieties over things, and then I match them with the other ladies that I know are gonna make them be awesome shooters. And that's what ladies are doing all across the country.
Very cool. Real quick here, honest question for the panel from Vash Matrix. What should I suggest to a daughter in a commie state? She's getting training for when she's legal, which means of legal age to carry, I think. But I wonder what other things would be good for minors.
I think that's a good Mary question.
Gee webs.
Sorry, I was looking for the unmute. So for minors, I mean, we do obviously like safety classes. It sounds like she's done some training already though. So I don't know if, because I would say like if a girl and a gun, I don't know if they allow for minors to participate. Stephanie might know that a little bit more. But I would say, honestly, just bringing them to the range really, because as far as training, I don't know. Stephanie, what would you say about that? Actually, I might have to put that back on you because with being underage, I'm not really sure. We only do safety classes.
Yeah, definitely take them to the range. A girl and a gun would be a great option. I don't know, you know, how young. Maybe you can throw that comment up there, but there is an age limit. But I would say a girl and a gun, and I can talk a little bit about a girl and a gun too, and what a wonderful experience that has been with me. But I see, you know, my daughter, actually I've got 4 daughters, and one of them is 16 right now. She's a girl and a gun member. We've got younger girls going to the national conference every year, getting involved with things, and they're doing all of the things that the 20-year-olds and the 30-year-olds and the 60-year-olds and the 70-year-olds are doing. They're really invited to become a part of that group and just welcomed into it. So, you know, definitely just getting her in the range and letting her experience those things with other women, I think would be great.
So I have, Susan, I saw you came off mute. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Well, I don't quote me on the age, but Armed Women of America also lowered the age beginning at the first of the year. And I want to say it's 13 if she joins with a parent, you know, her mother. And so I don't know if that would work in their situation, but I think it's 13, but don't quote me on it.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So yeah, I had a question, and then that's how my brain works. I completely forgot what it was going to be now. So hopefully I think
Well,
back.
I want to
on what was
respond to
gonna
that. What color revolver would she like? Question. Not pink.
Don't get the pink one. Well, they cost
Don't
more,
get the
don't they?
pink.
Isn't there a pink tax?
There should be.
Ah,
I like my guns black, hold the sugar.
Yeah, I do remember my question now, and I'm just going to open this up to the three of you. So, and I don't think we'll have a big issue with everybody talking at once, but I don't feel like I'm a teacher and I need to call on students here in class. The question that I had was, what has been each of your experience, and if you want to all take a turn at the question, that's fine. What have your experiences been going to firearm ranges and being a woman, going to gun stores, to gun shows, things like that? um, and then the other question that I have is, what advice can you give to other women who are out there who may be a little intimidated to go to a firing range, a gun store, a gun show, something like that, with or without a significant other who might be male?
So I would say for me, the first time I was buying a gun, I walked into the gun store and they immediately told me what I wanted rather than asking me what I wanted. They said, "This is what you want." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I ended up buying it, which still was a great gun as a Glock 43. But I was told that is like the best gun for me, and that's what I need to have. And then I ended up working at that gun store, about
I do know there's some storms rolling through
I took the
Connecticut. So
initiative that when yeah, there are storms. I'm sorry about that.
no,
But
that's okay.
so then I took the initiative that when I started working for that same gun store, when people were men and women, when they were walking into the store and they obviously it was their first time in there, first time buying a gun, and I was like, you know what, like let's set you up with like an actual pistol fitting class, and we'll take like a half hour, 45 minutes. You can try a couple guns and see what's actually going to fit you. So we started doing fittings rather than. And the salesmen kind of got frustrated with me because they obviously are looking for that quick sale on a gun. And I'm like, but you're doing a disservice to people. The gun's going to end up back here on consignment and you're not setting them up for success with this. So we took the initiative where we started telling them, let's do an actual pistol fitting. So that goes for men and women. But that was my first experience purchasing a gun, being told what I want. And I was like, that doesn't work. So.
Well, and I guess being a salesman, Defense Dad and I both work in retail. So being a salesman, I can tell you that the quick sale is one thing, but if you take the time to get to know your customer, and if you've got someone in a gun store who will take the time to get to know you, who will ask questions and listen to the answers to help you find what's best for you and not what's best for them to sell, you're more likely to come back as a customer to that person anyway. So why would anybody, I know why, but it still boggles my mind that anybody would not take the time to get to know their customers. And you know what, just because somebody wants to buy a gun that I don't like, or the gun salesman may not like, has nothing to do with how good that gun's going to work for them. So, and if yeah, male, female, I don't care who you are. If you go into a gun store and the salesman won't listen to you and wants you to listen to them about what you need, then either find a different salesperson in that store or find a different store. I'm sorry. But it's such a personal thing to pick out a firearm. If you wouldn't let somebody tell you what jeans to wear that fit you best, or what shoes to wear, then they shouldn't tell you what gun fits you best either.
Well, John, if I could, I know these ladies have more expertise than I have in this matter, but to answer his question, I am a single dad with
I
a
don't
daughter.
even remember
and-
your original question, but I do remember what popped in my head first was, my creepiest gun range experience was when I was shooting and I turned around and a gentleman was sweeping up my grass way too close into my bay. Don't stay on the lane.
All right. And out there in the chat, Vash Matrix is still wondering where Mrs. Sandhills is. She had a prior engagement. She just got here, as many of you might have seen her walk right behind me. She's here. She's firing up the computer now, and she'll be out there in just a second in the chat. So everybody worries about Mrs. Sandhills when she's not here. All right. Susan's back with us, too. All right. Defense Dad, go ahead with what you were going to say there.
Well, sorry, to answer his question about what to teach your daughter, like do simple things like what I did. I was lucky enough, like I put the statement in the chat, but I ran across a local firearms instruction school that absolutely let me bring my daughter out, just the two of us, gave us instruction, didn't charge us anything. They were excited about that. And on top of that, check with your local gun ranges. Local gun stores too. We happen to have a great store here in Lincoln that one of the owners is a woman, and she gets so excited when people bring their daughters in. And every time I take my daughter in there, she's more than willing to. When we were looking for her first handgun, she was more than happy to help fit her for the right gun and teach her some things from the woman's standpoint. So you can do simple things like that, and then kind of go from there. It's really encouraging to see people trying to help young girls and young kids in general learn how to operate firearms. It's a great thing to do. So that's one thing you can look at.
Yeah, very, very great advice there. There's some other questions that and comments that are coming through here. Going back to what Susan had said. G-Web says, "Oh snap! Is that already a mug or a T-shirt? I take my guns black, hold the sugar." Because that seems like a mug or a T-shirt. Somebody should get on that.
That's a Susan original, so I'm gonna need a cut of anything that comes from that.
In fact, we'll just go ahead and we'll abdicate. You can have that. You said it. You should have first dibs on running with that. But if you don't, I got a feeling
Is there a clock on that? Is there a clock?
Well, what is the patent runs out after 15 years, right? So if you don't do something with it, I expect maybe G-Webs is gonna make that into some sort of a patch or something, because that's a great.
Right.
I do agree. That's a great saying.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you like it, and I'll get on it.
Yeah.
And you'll buy whatever I produce, right?
Well, up to a point. Yeah. My financial officer is in the room, and I can't commit to anything now.
I do bulk pricing.
Nice. Serious question from G. Where do the three of you see DC Project in 5 years?
Wow, that's a good question. We are so grassroots, and we're seeing the growth. We know it's going to take some time because we want to build it right. But I think 5 years from now, what we would like to see is one woman from every legislative district in the United States making a trip to Washington, D.C. to meet with our legislator. And we all walk in Wednesday morning when the House and Senate are in session, and at 8:00, every single woman is walking into every single legislative office, and we are having 15 to 20-minute meetings all at the same time with 435 legislators at the same time. I think it would be amazing to have one woman from every legislative district. And it's slow, but I think we absolutely could get there in 5 years.
Wow, that would be amazing. I can't even imagine the message that would send to everyone in Congress and with 435 ladies, preferably wearing teal, walking in the door and meeting with a representative all at the same time. I can't imagine that there wouldn't be some sort of press, even though we know the mainstream's going to ignore you. Um, you know what? Here's the thing, though. I cannot see Diana letting that happen. She strikes me as somebody who refuses to be ignored by mainstream media. So
Mhm.
again, I mean, I just if we can can just convince one lady who's watching or listening to this broadcast to decide to help out and be part of DC Project, then we'll call it a win. But that's an amazingly cool thought right there. Yeah. Again, I
Yeah.
got a little bit of chills just thinking about the good that you all could do. All right, so I think we're kind of
Yeah.
caught up in the questions here, and I'm trying to remember now what else I wanted to ask everybody. Defense Dad, do you have anything that you want to throw out there or ask these ladies while I'm gathering my thoughts?
Not off the top of my head. I've really been enjoying listening to it.
Sure. All right, and G's got
Not too often
another
I keep quiet.
another follow-up question. A successful crowdfunding campaign raises awareness and funding, and you get all the resources that the DCP could ask for. What are you able to do the rest of this year? I think he means if you were able to raise all the resources you needed. What could happen if there was a crowdfunding effort and funds came in?
You know, we've got a list of things actually out there. We're doing fundraising constantly all the time, so that we can make those trips, that we can, you know, like the videos, put those videos out there and encourage people to get involved or take action. We've got to get out in front of people and share the message. And unfortunately, that takes money. We need money so that people can travel and do things. It's not free, you know, for even just to go to your state capital. Take me, for example, I'm in Western Nebraska. It's a 6-hour trip to go to my state capital. And you try and get women from each of the legislative districts in your state to make a trip to the state capital. That means there's expenses and things are coming out of people's pockets and they're having to take time off of work. Try and put that to Washington, D.C., and you want 435 people to show up in Washington, D.C. on their own dime. That's a lot of money. So, you know, the money coming in equals the ability for this group to be the counter voice and the counter visual to mom's demand action that we need to be.
Absolutely, and that's why teal is the color for DC Project. It's a great color to offset those red T-shirts. Which, being a Nebraskan, I love red, but every time I go to Lincoln to testify, same thing. I see those red T-shirts, and I just, you know, and we don't have a huge DC Project presence in our state capital here because you're 6 hours away, and I don't know anybody else in the organization that's closer in Nebraska.
Yeah.
But you know, that would be amazing too if we had more members across the country, to where every time that a bill goes to a state capital, that the DC Project ladies would show up, you know, at all 50 state capitals throughout the year as well. That would be very cool too. Here's one of the questions that I meant to ask while I had you all here. Let's say that there's somebody who really isn't outspoken, doesn't want to get into so much being an outspoken advocate. They don't really feel like they're the person that should go sit down with legislators. What can somebody who, and I'm thinking of my wife, and I'm not trying to shame her, but she's just, that's not going to be her. And so thank God there are ladies who are willing to do that, because I know that not every lady out there wants to or is able to. But if somebody wants to do something but going to Washington or even going to the state capitol isn't going to be that something. What are the other options? What can people do if they still want to help fight for their rights?
Stephanie, can I chime in?
Sure.
Well, that was the person that I joined to be, but it didn't work out that way for me. But what I do is I share every firearms bill on Facebook with the links to submit written testimony. You can call your district rep and tell them your thoughts on it. You can email them. So I just encourage people to know that you're doing something, and it does make a difference. I've had legislators tell me that the phone calls make a difference, the emails make a difference, more so when they're not in the form letter type, but they, count those too. But use your voice how you feel comfortable, or be like me and land yourself in an uncomfortable position and just roll with it anyway. If the cause is worthy, get out of your comfort zone.
Sure. And we all know how hard it is to get people out of their comfort zones, I think. So yeah, I just wanted to get that question out there so that anybody listening knows that there are things you can do, and you don't even have to sit face to face or even call anybody up and still make a difference. I'm still thinking back to what happened earlier this week in my state legislature. If we had more ladies take the initiative and contact our state senators here in Nebraska and tell their stories, or if not their stories, then tell their personal situations to the senators about why it would be beneficial to not have to go ask the state for permission to carry a gun in their handbag or underneath their coat or what have you. Because the constitutional carry bill here in our state died earlier this week. It's not going to happen. So again, anyone who wants to carry concealed in Nebraska has to have a permit to do so. And on this show, we've exhausted how wrong that is, ad nauseum. We're not going to get into that so much, but just if I could encourage, especially the ladies, because your stories, not being the proverbial old fat white guy with a beard who is, people like me, when you talk about American gun owners, I'm still the image that most people get in their mind. And I know that that's changing, and thanks in part to DC Project, and Armed Women of America and A Girl and a Gun and other organizations. But the people who aren't old fat white guys with a beard who reach out to these senators, voices resonate louder than mine will. And that's just all there is to it, because they're used to hearing from people like me, but they're not used to hearing from ladies like the three of you. And if they do, it's usually not very many, especially not when it comes to being on the proponent side of a good gun bill. And so the red t-shirt moms have that locked up as far as on the anti side. So again, I would love to encourage people to reach out and do that. And I want to thank all of you ladies for your efforts, for stepping out of your comfort zones, for telling your stories. Mary, I know that you've probably talked about it quite a bit now, but that can't have been an easy thing to do to start with, to tell people about your story. And I know that I'm just another dude telling you this, but the courage that it took for you to stay alive for your daughter, and the courage that it took for you to tell that story to people, and then to tell it to the world in a produced video for DC Project. Not to detract from the other ladies on the panel, but that my hat goes off to you just for the courage that it took to survive that, and then to not let that guy win. He didn't beat you then, and he's not beating you now because you're an incredibly strong person. And that any lady out there listening can be just as strong as Mary inside. You may not know it, but you've got that in you. And again, that's why DC Project is so important, because you're not the only one who's had that sort of experience. And if people hear a story like that, however hard it is to listen to, and of course the other half of that video is Lucretia telling her story of losing her son, which can't be an easy thing to talk about either. I can't wrap my head around what that would feel like. I'm not a parent, and I've never had a child, let alone lost one. So again, these ladies' stories, the reason that there's so much passion in this organization is because these are real people that have had real things happen to them. And some of you have said, look, that's never going to happen again. And I don't want that to ever happen to anybody else. And it's got to stop. So we're going to kind of wrap things up. I'm pretty well out of things to say. I don't think that we have a whole lot of other questions that I've missed out in the chat there. So before we wrap some things up, I will give each of you a chance to kind of give any final thoughts that you wanted to, and then where people can reach out to you as well. So we'll just start back up here at the top of the screen with Stephanie. And Stephanie, any thoughts that you have that you want to get out we haven't talked about yet? And then at the end, if anybody wants to reach out to you, how do they do that?
Okay, I've got a lot. I've been making a list here, so I got some things. So
No
just
problem.
this last topic, particularly how people get involved. It doesn't have to be meeting with your legislator. On dcproject.info, there's a free download that you can get. It's how to talk about gun safety and protecting the civil rights of all Americans. It's just different talking points. Just knowing those and being able to have a conversation with people is great. Reach out to your state director or get a hold of your state organization. You can do that through the website too. We don't need people just to go to meetings. We need people that can send thank you notes, that can do the things behind the scenes, that can organize. So if talking to people in person's not your thing, we still need you. So get a hold of your state director and figure out how you can fit into that puzzle for us. Donate, go to the website, buy a t-shirt, buy a pair of socks, buy a necklace, something that's out there, because all that money helps with the mission of DC Project. So it doesn't have to be just meeting with legislature. That was just the piece that I wanted to add there on that. Other things going on with the DC Project that you can do to help. We do a 2-man, 3-gun team match every year. It's a fundraiser. This year it's June 18th and 19th. It's in Iberia, Missouri. You can find all the information on that on the DC Project Match Facebook page. It is a different page than the big page. Our annual trip to Washington, D.C. is in September of this year. On Saturday, September 17th, we are going to do a 2A rally on the Capitol lawn in association with our trip. And that is not just a DC Project thing. It's not just a women thing. It is a freedom-loving Second Amendment rally. So come to Washington, D.C. on September 17th. Check out dcproject.info. You can find DC Project on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Stay tuned, because the video you showed earlier is not the last video. There's more coming out. You can get me, Stephanie Schafer, on Facebook, or Stephanie Schafer, firearms instructor, on Facebook and Instagram. And Vash, I saw a question about less than lethal options. Send me a message on Facebook. A Girl and a Gun has some awesome resources that I know of that I can share with you and give you some ideas on that. So find me on Facebook and I can get you some of that information.
Awesome. Stephanie, thank you so much for not only being awesome, but for for coming on and for enlisting these other two ladies as well and inviting them to come on the show. I really appreciate everything that you do, not just for the DC Project, but just as my friend. I appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
You betcha. All right, Mary, we'll move over to you. Anything that you wanted to say that we haven't given you a chance yet to say? And then if anybody would like to reach out to you, how do they do so?
Sure. So I just want to bounce off of Stephanie and Susan with ideas of how to get involved.
Please.
Would be, so if you have a small business or you work for a small business, see if it's an option to do like a fundraiser. So right now in Connecticut, I have a different small business, not just two-way related. It could be a restaurant or an apparel company or something like that, but just do some type of a fundraiser and honestly make it maybe like an annual event. So like every February you would do a fundraiser for DC projects. So that's a good way if you can't personally donate to the DC project, maybe using the resources that you have as a small business. And another thing, one of my own personal goals here in Connecticut, did I freeze? I didn't, right? Okay. So one of my own personal goals here in Connecticut is to reach out to women that aren't necessarily.
Oh, there you did.
Aw.
And I froze that time. Okay.
Yep, you're back.
Okay, so it's to reach out to women that aren't typically in that two-way community. So even all of us are here in this community. Try to network and make friends with people. You know, at your kids' baseball game, just be friends with other moms, and then eventually that might come up in a conversation where they ask you what you do or what your hobbies are, and engage in that conversation. Don't make it a taboo subject. Don't be afraid to talk about it. Obviously, don't go out there and blurt it out, but allow for that conversation to happen. And then from behind the scenes, you can do written testimony. So even though you don't want to show up and do testimony at a public hearing, but you can submit a written testimony, if you get stage fright. And then one huge thing on social media. So it would be sharing, liking, and commenting, which obviously you don't verbally have to, you don't have to communicate with anybody on a direct level, but just on a social media level, engage in all of the DC project posts, because that helps keep us relevant on social media and keep that message going. So those would be my suggestions of how to stay involved.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And then how can somebody reach out to you?
Sure. So it would probably be the best way that I'm always using Instagram. So my Instagram is lomag. So it's LOMAG _Mary, MARY. And that would be the best way to contact me, is through Instagram. All
right. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And hopefully this is the beginning of a great friendship. And if you need anything, ever want to come back and hang out, you just let me know.
Thank you, John.
You betcha. All right, Susan, we'll move over to you. Anything that you didn't get a chance to say, and then how can people reach you?
Well, as far as Missouri, on April 26th, it's a Tuesday, there's a gun rights rally at the Missouri Capitol, and DC Project has been invited to speak. A group of ladies in teal went to check it out last year, and we ended up crashing it, and I was able to speak at it. This year they were nice and invited me back. So there's that. I would love to see people showing up and wearing teal to that. As far as reaching me, my YouTube and Facebook page are Worthwhile Fun, aka Competitive Shooting. And on Instagram, I rarely use it. I'm old. It's Susan Myers 2A or _2A. I don't know. But find me on Facebook, and on YouTube. I also share videos when I can get them on all my public testimonies. And I share those because I want to encourage other people to use their voice. Each bill I testify on, I put the woman's perspective of how the bills will affect the women in the state who carry. And I don't ever want another firearms bill to be discussed in Missouri without the women who the bills affect being at the forefront of that. And so I share those and and share links for people to get involved all the time because I want to bombard them. Missouri's good to us pretty much on gun rights, but there are rights, so they can give us more of them back. So it could always be better. Thanks for having me.
You bet, and amen to all that you just said. Yeah, great stuff. All right, so the rally that's happening in Washington D.C. is scheduled for September 17th. I know G-Webs and was out there asking about some stuff, and I see that that Stephanie had answered some of those. So very, very cool. All right, so again, just all of you who are on the panel tonight, and all of the rest of the ladies who are involved in the DC project, it's not for nothing. You are making a difference, and it's not just that you're making a difference for other ladies across the country, but you are making a difference in legislation too. So if there's anything I can do as far as encouragement, I just want you to know that again, it's not for nothing. I think with that, we'll go ahead and just wrap this up. For those of you that on the panel here that are new guests, you don't have to hang up right away when we stop going live. I do have a couple of questions I want to ask before you check out there. So as far as wrapping things up, we will not be having a Get Off My Lawn podcast next week on what is that, the 21st, April 21st, just because we're getting ready to we're not gonna go visit Susan, but we're gonna go not too far away from her, it sounds like. We're making a trip, so we won't be around Thursday in order to we'll be around, but we'll be busy making that happen, and so getting stuff lined up for the house sitters and whatnot. So I won't be able to do a podcast. So join us in 2 weeks on the 28th for the next installment of the Get Off My Lawn podcast, and I might have a one or two new panelists that night as well. But I think that's about it. We didn't have a specific sponsor tonight because this would have been the night that Sandhills Defense would have been the sponsor, but I wanted the education, not legislation picture up there instead of the sponsor all night. So since it's my business, I abdicated even the little ad. It's not about me, and it's not about us guys tonight. It's about you ladies, and just knowing that that legislation is not a man's game. There are so many ladies in the legislature. There are so many ladies who have decided they want to go and talk to these legislators and just let them know that that just what Susan said, the female perspective needs to be considered with every bill that gets introduced, and not just the female perspective of, well, guns kill children, which, yes, it's true, some children are killed by guns, but guns are the tool. They're not the actual killer. But the perspective of the ladies who don't want to lose their rights as firearm owners and don't want to be more restricted, who want to be their own first responders. Gosh, restrictive gun laws, were it not for the grace of God, I'd have 2 panelists joining instead of 3 tonight. So again, now that we're about done, go over to DC Project's YouTube channel, or check the comment pinned at the top of the live chat here tonight, and go check that video out. So on behalf of Susan and Mary and Stephanie, and on behalf of Defense Dad and Sandhills Sweetheart, who is now with us, thank you all for watching, for listening. This will be up on the audio version 1 week from today at 5 o'clock Central Time. So you can share that. Please hit that share button. Go and check out DC Project and catch them on social media. Please help spread the words. Please help spread these ladies' words tonight. Yes, it helps me too. But hit the share button. If you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so. Go find us on Facebook. As soon as I get this downloaded, I will upload it so it can be viewed on the Facebook page as well, there at Sandhills Media, and on the Get Off My Lawn podcast page. So I'll put it on both. So again, ladies, thank you. All of you out there watching and listening, thank you. God bless you. We love you. But it's that time. You need to go away. Get off my lawn.